You can build secure pipelines. You can automate vulnerability scans. You can deploy containers with hardened configurations. But if governance is weak, your DevSecOps program will drift. Governance is what ensures that security is not dependent on individual discipline or temporary enthusiasm. It institutionalizes expectations. It scales standards. It aligns engineering velocity with regulatory reality. If you are a leader or architect, this lecture is about how you design DevSecOps governance that works, not as bureaucracy, but as strategic enablement, particularly in environments influenced by frameworks such as PSPF, ISO 27001, SOCI, and broader regulatory obligations. Why governance is non-negotiable in DevSecOps? DevSecOps accelerates change. Change without governance creates inconsistency. Inconsistency creates risk. Risk creates exposure. Governance is not about slowing down DevSecOps. It is about ensuring that acceleration does not create uncontrolled risk. When you operate at scale, multiple teams, multiple pipelines, multiple cloud subscriptions, multiple environments, informal agreements are not enough. Governance provides standardization, accountability, measurability, auditability, repeatability. Without governance, DevSecOps becomes fragmented innovation. With governance, it becomes institutional resilience. Traditional governance often relied on static documents. Policies were written, stored in repositories, and reviewed annually. Compliance was checked manually. Exceptions were tracked in spreadsheets. That model does not scale in continuous delivery environments. Modern DevSecOps governance must integrate policy as code, automated control enforcement, continuous compliance validation, real-time reporting. As a leader, you must move from policy exists to policy is enforced automatically. For example, if your policy states that all cloud resources must use encryption at rest, that requirement should be embedded into infrastructure templates and enforced through automated controls, not verified months later in an audit. Governance must live in the pipeline. If you operate in the Australian public sector or engage with government environments, the Protective Security Policy Framework, PSPF, defines expectations for governance, risk management, personnel security, and information protection. DevSecOps governance must support PSPF principles such as risk-based decision-making, accountability at leadership levels, protection of sensitive information, secure ICT systems, ongoing assurance and reporting. From a leadership perspective, this means ensuring that secure development practices align with risk management policies. Access controls reflect personnel security expectations. Audit logging supports assurance activities. Incident response processes integrate with national reporting requirements. PSPF is not a separate compliance exercise. It must be embedded into how software is designed, deployed, and operated. DevSecOps becomes the execution mechanism for PSPF alignment. ISO 27001 emphasizes systematic information security management. It requires risk assessment and treatment, defined security controls, continuous monitoring, internal audits, management review. In DevSecOps environments, ISO alignment requires you to ensure risk assessments inform design decisions. Security controls are embedded in pipelines. Evidence of control operation is automatically generated. Management dashboards reflect real-time security posture. You must shift from annual audit preparation to continuous compliance. If ISO 27001 controls are manual overlays on automated pipelines, friction increases. If ISO controls are embedded into DevSecOps workflows, compliance becomes a byproduct of disciplined engineering. That is governance maturity. If you operate in sectors governed by the Security of Critical Infrastructure SOCI Act, your governance obligations extend beyond internal IT. You must consider system resilience, incident reporting, critical asset protection, supply chain visibility, operational continuity. DevSecOps governance must therefore ensure secure configuration baselines for critical systems, visibility into software dependencies, controlled change management for high impact assets, monitoring capable of detecting malicious modifications, executive oversight of risk acceptance. In critical infrastructure environments, the impact of insecure software is not just financial, it can be societal. Your governance model must reflect that level of responsibility. In small teams, governance can be informal. At scale, inconsistency becomes inevitable unless you standardize. As a leader, demand reusable secure architecture patterns, centralized policy definitions, automated control libraries, shared pipeline templates, unified logging standards. When each team invents its own controls, you create uneven maturity. When governance is centralized but execution is decentralized, scale becomes manageable. Consistency is the foundation of scale. DevSecOps does not eliminate the need for oversight. Instead, oversight must evolve. Traditional architecture review boards operated on long project cycles. DevSecOps operates continuously. You must design governance forums that review high-risk design decisions, approve architectural deviations, assess systemic risk trends, monitor compliance posture, evaluate emerging threat impacts. Governance boards should focus on patterns and systemic risk, not micromanaging individual pull requests. Strategic oversight strengthens engineering autonomy. In high-velocity environments, risk trade-offs happen frequently. A vulnerability may not be fixable immediately. A legacy system may not support modern controls. A third-party dependency may introduce exposure. Your governance model must define who can accept risk, under what conditions, for how long, with what documentation, with what visibility. Risk acceptance must never be silent. Executive awareness ensures that trade-offs are deliberate, not accidental. Transparency protects leadership credibility. Compliance is not a point-in-time activity. DevSecOps governance must provide real-time dashboards, automated compliance scoring, evidence generation from pipelines, exception tracking mechanisms, audit-ready artifacts. When regulators or auditors ask for evidence, you should not scramble to reconstruct history. Continuous compliance transforms audit anxiety into operational confidence. You must monitor governance effectiveness through measurable indicators, such as percentage of workloads aligned to approved architecture patterns, compliance drift rates, risk acceptance volume and aging, control enforcement coverage, incident trends linked to governance gaps, time to remediate compliance findings. Governance without measurement becomes symbolic. Measurement ensures discipline. One risk in scaling governance is overloading teams with complexity. Too many policies, too many tools, too many reviews. Governance must be clear, prioritized, and automated wherever possible. You should eliminate redundant controls, align overlapping frameworks, harmonize requirements across PSPF, ISO, SOCI, and internal standards. Communicate clearly why controls exist. When teams understand purpose, resistance decreases. Clarity reduces fatigue. Many organizations operate under multiple frameworks simultaneously. Instead of treating PSPF, ISO 27001, SOCI, and other regulations as separate obligations, map common control themes, access control, secure development, logging and monitoring, risk management, incident response, supply chain oversight. Create a unified control model. DevSecOps pipelines should implement one harmonized security baseline that satisfies multiple frameworks simultaneously. Integration reduces duplication. Strong governance is often seen as overhead, but in reality it builds customer trust, investor confidence, regulatory credibility, operational predictability. Organizations that demonstrate mature DevSecOps governance win contracts more easily. They respond to audits confidently. They recover from incidents faster. Governance becomes a differentiator. Governance fails when it is perceived as policing. It succeeds when it is framed as protection. Your communication must reinforce. Governance enables safe innovation. Compliance demonstrates professionalism. Risk transparency builds credibility. Secure development is engineering excellence. When leadership tone is consistent, governance becomes embedded. Culture follows leadership. In a mature DevSecOps governance model, policies are codified and automated. Architecture standards are reusable and enforced. Compliance is continuous, not episodic. Risk acceptance is transparent. Framework requirements are harmonized. Leadership dashboards reflect real-time posture. Engineering teams understand expectations clearly. Governance becomes invisible infrastructure, quietly protecting the organization while enabling growth. Ask yourself, are your DevSecOps controls enforceable or advisory? Do you rely on manual compliance checks? Can you demonstrate alignment to PSPF, ISO 27001 and SOCI through pipeline telemetry? Are risk decisions documented and visible? Is governance standardized across teams? Honest reflection reveals whether your DevSecOps program is sustainable at scale. If this lecture has clarified the importance of governance in DevSecOps, act deliberately. Review your current policy enforcement model. Identify where manual processes can become automated. Harmonize overlapping framework requirements. Establish real-time compliance dashboards. Clarify executive accountability for risk acceptance. Governance is not optional in high-velocity environments. If you found value in this session, subscribe to the DevSecOps for Leaders playlist. Like this video so it reaches more leaders and architects, and share your perspective in the comments. How is your organization aligning DevSecOps with regulatory expectations? In the next lecture, you will explore embedding security into CI/CD pipelines and what good looks like at scale.